is Holly Signorelli. Holly's a CPA. She likes to refer to herself as a money therapist, and she's author of a book called You Know Where Your Money Is? Today we're going to talk about Social Security recipients. They did not get an inflationary adjustment this year, and many of them are stuck in what's called a donut hole. What do you mean by a donut hole, Holly?
Well, the donut hole is, first let's step back. You're right. There's zero inflation. Like, that hasn't happened in, I'm looking at statistics here, like 20, 30 years. So I don't know if it's ever happened that there was zero inflation. And yet, the estimated inflation for 2016 is somewhere about 1.5%, which is kind of low. But in other words, everything else is going up, but not the Social Security. But the donut hole is fascinating in a bad way. It means that Medicare is going to pay for the first $3,300 of your prescriptions. And after that, you have to pay 45% of the prescriptions until you're out of pocket $4,800. So basically, Medicare is going to take care of part of it. And once you reach that cap, you have to pay for your prescriptions at up to about $5,000 while you're still paying your Medicare premium. And that's what they call the donut hole, because the prescription prices keep going up. So the prescription's going up, other expenses are going up, but then there's no inflation. So it's causing a financial strain for a lot of people on Social Security.
And a lot of different organizations and a lot of different people have complained to Congress and not doing something about it. Back when the Universal Health Care bill was passed, Congress had an opportunity to fix this problem. What was it? Well, they could have said the government will become the number one consumer of all drugs in America, much like Canada, you see. What would that have meant? Well, it would have meant that, bottom line, we would have saved about 40% on what our cost of drugs are. Why do I come up with that number? Well, that's about how much Canadians pay for drugs in their country. They pay 40% less than we pay for the very exact same drugs here in this country. So that's a good model to use. So if our government was the number one buyer of all drugs and then passed the savings along to we, the consumers, think of the money we would save. But no, that's not how it works. You see, the lobbyists made doggone sure that Congress didn't pass such legislation.
Yeah, that's right. The prescriptions are really out of control. The amount that they charge versus their cost is literally staggering. And besides the inflation rate only going up 1.5%, there's certain things that a person that's living off of Social Security and maybe doesn't have a pension plan or anything or some extra savings, there's some things like staples that go up more like 2 to 3%, like the bread and milk and the basics that you need. So if somebody's on a really, really fixed income and one or two of their prescriptions go up or they go into the donut hole, they just simply may not have the money to pay for it. And that's what I think is scary.
Well, common sense this is what the kinds of things that just make you scratch your head. Who is it that qualifies for Medicare? Well, that would be people who are over 62 or 65 or 67 years of age, depending on who qualifies for Social Security benefits, you see.
Right.
Let's take a look at that age group for a minute. Do you think that people who are in their mid to late 60s spend more money on prescriptive drugs than people in their 20s? What would be your guess?
Of course.
You don't have to know much about medicine to say, yeah, I would think that probably would be true. So when you don't increase or make an inflation adjustment to this age group, do you think that might hurt them a little bit? don't have to be much of a CPA to answer that either, do you?
That is for sure. Yeah, we're talking basic math here. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of these things don't even apply to the very government that is, you know, making these decisions for everyone.
So when Holly says inflation this year across the board is going to go up 1.5%, that may be true. I wish the hell that prescription drugs were only going to go up 1.5%. Do you think that's the case? Well, if you think that, you've got another think coming.
All right. Yeah, in fact, you know, there is absolutely nobody really monitoring the prescriptions. You know, Big Pharma's got control over this country right now. It's unbelievable.
And they make sure of that by having plenty of lobbyists in Washington, D.C., and in each state's General Assembly to make sure it stays that way.
That's right. Yeah, they're making a killing, so they have plenty of money to pay for the lobbyists, that is for sure, to maintain their own income. And like you said, you can get all of these things overseas for much less, and it's the same thing. That's what's mind-boggling.
Yeah, for the same exact drugs. And so there are literally cottage industries that have cropped up as a result of this. If you live, well, in my hometown of Toledo, Ohio, every week, honest to God, every week there are bus trips to Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Where is that? It's right across the bridge from Detroit. That goes to Windsor for one purpose. That's so people can buy drugs. Not illegal drugs. I'm not talking about heroin and cocaine. No, I'm talking about prescriptive drugs. They take a prescription from their doctor across the bridge into Windsor, and they buy legal prescription drugs in Canada.